Hey, it's Shannon Tran here, and in this video, I'm going to share the 5 biggest communication mistakes that you could be making without realizing it, and it's costing you a great relationship. So how many times have you been in a relationship with someone and you've just maybe felt frustrated or discouraged because of your communication skills or their communication skills? Maybe you've got really bad habits that you're not even aware of, and it's causing you some harmony and some peace and the love and the connection that you're looking for in your relationships. I remember speaking to one of my friends a few years ago who ended a relationship with his girlfriend. And I asked, because I was curious, well, what happened? Why did you end this relationship? And he said to me, I just didn't have the energy to teach her how to be nice. So think about that for a second. You could be losing a great relationship simply because you have one of these 5 bad communication skills that's costing you the love, that's costing you the harmony, that's costing you the respect, that's costing you the connection that you deserve in your relationships. And so if you're wanting to master your communication so that people love to be around you, they are inspired by you, and they want to be around you, then you've got to avoid these 5 biggest communication mistakes. So mistake number 1, using you statements. So how many times have you caught yourself, or maybe you've heard other people say, you've done this, you hurt my feelings, you make me so angry, it's your fault. And just notice how repelling that feels, because the second you or the other person in your conversation is using you statements, you tune out, you stop listening, you become defensive. And maybe you've noticed that yourself. And so spend time catching yourself when you're communicating with someone. Are you using I statements? I feel, I notice, I've experienced this. And take responsibility for your experience rather than casting blame at the other person, and the other person then shutting down and no longer listening what you have to say, even if it's valid. You could have a valid and reasonable point, but if you're using you statements and pointing the finger at the other person, instinctively they're going to shut down and become defensive and no longer listen to what you have to say, and then the conversation basically falls apart. So that's the biggest mistake. Number 1 is stop using you statements and use I statements. Mistake number 2 is interrupting someone in the conversation before they've even finished. So maybe you've been around someone where they just kind of take over the conversation. They're constantly interrupting. They don't let people finish. They'll just kind of take control of the room. And what happens is that can just really suck the energy from everyone else. And so notice when either yourself or the other person is using that bad habit of interrupting, and be assertive. Just tell them, hey, can I finish my story? Can I finish what I'm saying? Can I finish my point here? And then I'm happy to listen to what you have to say. So if you're doing it on your end, practice listening and wait till the other person is done. And you can even ask, are you finished? And 2, if you catch someone else doing it, see if you can stop the bad habit on their end by simply asking them, right? Assert yourself. Ask them, can I please finish my sentence? Can I finish my story? I'm not done yet. All right, so that's mistake number 2. Mistake number 3, and this is a big one because we often miss it, I know I have, is ignoring the tonality and the body language of the other person. So it's interesting, even though we know that like over 70% of communication is all nonverbal, for whatever reason, we've all just been trained to only listen to what people say and not listen to their tone and their body language. And so we're missing the biggest part of communication by ignoring their body language. And so you can't catch someone's hesitation or concern, or, maybe it's their disagreement, but they're afraid to speak up. And so if you're too busy focused on your point of view, you're going to miss the tonality and the body language. Is it congruent? When the person is speaking, How are they sounding about their point of view? What is it like to listen to them? And just really pay attention to the tone. So for example, if you've ever heard the expression, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So it could be just, hey, I'm not done with my story. Do you see how aggressive that tonality is compared to, hey, I'm not done with my story? So people pick up on other people's energy. So when you're listening to tonality and to body language, you're also paying attention to the unseen, to the invisible, and to people's energy, because that's what we're really responding to on a deep subconscious level. So tip number 3 is don't ignore tonality and body language when you're communicating with other people. All right, tip number 4, and the fourth biggest reason for, or the fourth biggest mistake of communication would be looking at communication as a win or lose. So that's a mindset, that's a perspective. And if you're looking at a communication as how can I win and how can they lose, or I've got to win this conversation, I've got to win at all costs, that relationship can't grow because the person's not going to feel safe. So it's interesting. I'm thinking of actually a family member on my husband's side. And I remember having a conversation with her and I said, well, would you rather be right or be in the relationship? And she said, I'd rather be right. And it's interesting because now it totally makes sense of why she is alone, of why she's not in a relationship, of why she's never been in a relationship for years. Because if you're more committed to being right and winning than working through a conflict and finding ways for there to be a win-win for yourself and the other person, that relationship can't thrive. Because in relationships, the healthiest one is about win-win. How can we both win? How can this work for both of us? Asking the person, does this work for you? Okay, if not, let's come up with a solution where both of us win. That's a mindset. And when you do that and the person feels your genuine care for them, that your genuine interest in their needs, they're going to want to solve problems with you. They're going to want to work it out. They're going to want to come up with solutions. So the fourth biggest mistake in communication is thinking of it as win-lose. Look for the win-win. And finally, the fifth biggest mistake in communication is discounting the other person's feelings. And that's when you may say things like, well, your feelings are important, or don't feel sad, or that's not that bad, and dismissing their experience. So notice when you're doing that, are you, if someone's in pain, are you dismissing it? Are you saying it's not that bad, it's not that serious, get over it? Maybe you've heard comments or said comments. So clean up your communication. Avoid the 5 biggest communication mistakes so that you can have more love and harmony and influence in your relationship and really stand as a strong, confident, worthy, and loving person as you lead your life. So as a recap, the 5 biggest mistakes are: number 1, using you statements. Number 2, interrupting. Number 3, ignoring the tonality and body language. Number 4 is thinking of communication as win-lose. And number 5 is discounting someone else's experience and feelings. So spend the next 7 days catching yourself in these negative 5 habits and break them. And then if you'd like more support, if you'd like my free workbook on how to thrive in your personal relationships, there's going to be a link with this video. It's free. It talks about communication, how to have healthier relationships, how to catch even more habits, and how to use assertive resolution instead of passive or aggressive communication. So again, you can have free access to that in the video with the link below. So see you until next time. Bye for now.